Wear this, talk like that, act like this, and talk about that. People are more or less addicted to giving others advice. Having someone breathing down your neck while you're trying to get work done is an all too familiar feeling, as is when a bunch of people start hounding you with what you should do and how you should do it. Basically, everyone loves the sound of their own voice. This isn't to suggest, though, that all advice is bad advice. The fact is that some people give genuinely good advice, possibly even life-changing words of wisdom. Yet the best advice can be summed up like this: ignore everyone. That's right. Contrary to what everyone else might be telling you, don't listen to them. Bad advice aside, don't listen to the good ones either. Why? That's what we're here to talk about. The sound of their voice. Think about something. Why do people give advice? Now, the reasons can vary from one person to another. Some people like to give advice out of the goodness of their hearts, sharing experiences they've learned from and altogether just wanting better for the other guy. Then, of course, there are people who like to give advice for the sake of it. Simply, they enjoy the authoritative feeling of telling someone else what to do. But do you know what both of them have in common? Their voice is the only voice that's filling up the room, even when you're right there with them. When you ask someone for advice, it usually goes like this. You tell them what's bothering you or what's on your mind, and based on that, you present them with a range of options. The advice here is on what they think you should do. However, the facts are solely related to you and your case. Career advice? It's your career. Family matters? It's your family. So on and so on. Again, some people give good advice, and some people give bad advice. In any case, the advice that they give is for you and what you should do. So why shouldn't you be in control of the decision? It's one thing to let you vent, and it's a whole other thing to start off on a rant of their own, offering their experiences as an example and determining what's best for you. Even a person with the best of intentions can tend to fill up all the space in a room with details about themselves and their worldview. Keep in mind, this was supposed to be about you. Maybe their advice is based on their perception of you, and that softens the blow just a little bit. Still, advice on what you should or shouldn't do is a tricky matter. See, you've basically opened up your life and your perceived issues to another person, maybe even more than one, and now they feel like they have the authority to determine what's best for you. Someone who you've grown up with and known since middle school will tell you what you should do in your career based on their understanding of you. However, their understanding of you was from when you were 12, and things have changed drastically from then. Do you think they have the right knowledge and facts in their arsenal to give you advice? You know they don't. Contrary to what you might think, too, you're not necessarily looking for advice when you share a situation that's been bothering you. If something's on your mind and a decision is weighing on you, it's not that you don't know what to do. It's the fact that you need an outlet to express everything and possibly bounce off ideas on what you think is the best thing to do. Advice isn't the law, and you're free to take it or ignore it. That much is a given, but you've essentially allowed another person to take a personal interest in your life. Now, if you go against their advice, they'll question why you even bothered to ask them in the first place. And frankly, why did you? So taking someone's advice isn't the same as wanting to vent or bounce ideas off of one another. It opens up a door you'd rather keep closed, because this is your life, and these are your decisions, taking away your personal autonomy. When people give advice, they often mean well, but their guidance is often shaped by their own experiences, fears, and unresolved emotional issues. These personal biases can distort the advice they offer, making it less relevant or useful for your situation. It's important to understand the emotional baggage behind the advice so you can separate helpful guidance from advice rooted in someone else's anxieties. This distinction helps you make decisions that align with your own values and goals, rather than being influenced by someone else's emotional state. People often project their own insecurities when offering advice, especially if the situation involves risk. For example, someone who has experienced failure or financial struggles may discourage you from taking similar risks because of their fear of seeing you face the same challenges. Their advice is more about protecting you from their own past pain than it is about assessing your potential. Following this type of advice can prevent you from taking the risks necessary for growth, holding you back from reaching your full potential. This is especially true when the advice giver is emotionally invested in your life. Parents, close friends, and partners may offer advice that reflects their own desires or expectations for you, rather than what is genuinely best for your unique situation. For instance, a parent might steer you away from a path that doesn't align with their vision for your future, or push you toward safer choices to protect you from failure. While their intentions are good, their emotional investment can create bias, prioritizing your safety or happiness over your personal growth and fulfillment. Additionally, people who have experienced trauma or difficult life events may project their pain onto you. Someone who has gone through heartbreak may advise you to be overly cautious in their relationships, or a person who has faced career rejections might discourage you from pursuing ambitious goals. In these cases, the advice is shaped by their unresolved emotions rather than an objective view of your potential for success. Recognizing the emotional baggage behind the advice allows you to filter it more effectively. By understanding these influences, you can make decisions that reflect your values and aspirations, rather than being held back by someone else's fears or past experiences. You already know what to do. This might seem like a unique take, but hear us out. You already know what to do, long before you ask someone for advice. This ties into what we've already talked about, and that's the fact that all you really wanted was someone to hear you vent about the complexities of the decision you were about to make. Some decisions are difficult to make, and some come a whole lot easier. In either case, the person who's responsible for making that decision already knows what's best for them. The decision was made long before you opened the panel up for discussion, and that's the worst thing you could have done. While the decision would remain the same even if everyone in the world tells you otherwise, you've now created a conflict in your mind. Of course, people who give advice base it on something, and sometimes they make a strong enough case for you to really reevaluate everything you thought you knew. What you choose to do in your life and how you choose to navigate a change can only ever be decided by you. Adding more and more people into the mix complicates things even when they weren't complicated in the first place. This could best be expressed with an example. Say you have to make a choice between two people, A and B. You already know that there's something about A that's pulling you towards them. Still, because it's a decision to be made and not one to be taken lightly, you ask someone for their advice. That person doesn't know A or B in the same way that you do. They only know you, and their knowledge of you is also limited to what you've expressed throughout the friendship. That person will give you advice based on what they know about you. Maybe they'll tell you that B is the better option, even though you know in your heart that it's A. Not that this changes the outcome, but it prolongs it. Now, because it was a complicated decision anyway, you've raised a new conflict in your mind. Why is this other person telling me to choose B? Now, in some cases, people actively seek out advice. Taking the same example a little further, that this friend of yours told you to go with A, that would have been exactly what you wanted to hear. In that case, the only thing that would have changed about the outcome would have been the speed in which you professed to A. Do you see the difference in how the advice impacted you? The outcome was the same either way. And that's because you know yourself better than anyone else can ever. In this case, you knew the answer long before you even asked the question. However, when the advice steered you elsewhere, it temporarily shook you up. On the other hand, when the advice was in line with what you wanted anyway, it gave you reassurance that you were doing the right thing. That right there is why most people seek advice. Reassurance. Inherently, it's a selfish reason to ask for someone else's opinion because you really only want them to second your own advice to yourself. But people seek out validation in the form of asking for advice. The fact is that it doesn't always work out the way you'd want it to. The only advice you ever need is none of it. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more.